Welcome to today's sleep story. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story about Thea, a young adult on her world trip and her journey on the Aurora, the Alaskan overnight train, which runs through a panoramic winter wonderland between the cities of Anchorage and Fairbanks. This train really exists, but I would like to note that I have freely added some details, such as the interior of the train and uniforms of the train attendants. Anyone who has ridden this train in real life may forgive me for any discrepancies. Before we begin, make yourself nice and comfortable in your bed. Let us take 3 deep breaths. Breathe deeply into your belly through your nose. Feel your abdomen rise and fall as you exhale from your mouth. This is always a good first step to relaxing, whether it's to fall asleep or in the middle of the day. Now, let your breathing resume its natural rhythm. Notice the weight of your body, how gravity pushes you into your bed. Let go of all tension. Thea exhaled deeply and checked the time. It was almost time for dinner in the dining car of the Aurora, the overnight train between Anchorage and Fairbanks in Alaska. Since they had departed, Thea had not stopped admiring the scenery outside. The endless stretches of snow-covered mountains, the glistening rivers, the frozen lakes, the endless forests, and the deep blue sky that stretched all around them. She had been so busy exploring this magnificent land that she hadn't even had time to read a book, let alone doze off. Thea felt like she could sit and gaze at the landscape forever. After all, exploring the world was the young adult's whole intention behind leaving home in Greece. She wanted to see new places, meet people, learn things, and experience cultures. Her parents were proud of her adventurous spirit and supported her decision. The Aurora was one of the few trains still operating during the coldest months of the year, when temperatures dropped below freezing each night. This was why the passengers were given blankets, hot drinks, and hot meals to keep them warm throughout the ride. The heating, however, was perfectly functional as well, and Thea felt quite warm after having spent the last 3 hours curled up in her blanket, gazing out the window. A smile spread across her face as she remembered how she had woken up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and had seen a moose standing by the side of the track on a snowy hill. Thea had never seen a moose before. She was instantly mesmerized by its dark eyes and its furry brown coat, on the spot being enamored with its majesty and mystery. Perhaps this animal puzzled about this massive object that dared traversing through its territory without any trepidation and respect towards it. The soft ringing of a silver bell notified the passengers of the Aurora that dinner was now being served. Thea rose from her seat, stretching her limbs and rubbing her sleepy eyes. She walked down the aisle of the carriage until she reached the end of the corridor where the dining room was located. The dining room was spacious and elegantly decorated. The walls were covered with wooden panels, and the floor was made of polished wood. A long table, covered with a white linen cloth, occupied the center of the room. The table was surrounded by high-backed chairs. In front of each chair hung a small candle lamp, which gave off a warm light. As Thea entered the room, the fragrance of freshly baked bread filled her nostrils. The aroma reminded her of her mother's cooking, and her stomach rumbled. The smiling waiters, dressed in black uniforms with gold trim, welcomed her. Each waiter wore a tall hat adorned with a white feather, grasping the edge of it while greeting each arriving guest politely with a slight bow. Thea was handed a menu, and after selecting her meal, Thea occupied a table near the window and watched the mellow orange sunset over the distant horizon, over the vast expanse of snowy mountain ranges. The waiters brought plates and silverware and began serving the guests. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the lights in the dining room were turned on. Thea took a sip of wine, enjoying the sweet taste on her tongue. Across from her, an elderly couple was holding hands and gazing into each other's eyes. They seemed to be reminiscing about their life together. The man was wearing a tweed jacket and a tie, and the woman was wearing a dress. Their appearance was elegant and dignified, reminding Thea of her grandparents in Patras, her hometown in Greece. Resting her head on her bent arm, Thea wondered if tonight would be the night where she would finally see the famous northern lights, Aurora Borealis. The aurora was one of the most beautiful phenomena in nature, but also one of the hardest to see. It is a beautifully swirling display of greenish-blue rivers in the night sky. Thea had heard stories of travelers who had traveled to the far corners of the globe just to catch a glimpse of the aurora, only to return disappointed. Thea closed her eyes, imagining herself standing beside a majestic river, watching the dancing lights in the night sky. The sound of the rushing river would be soothing, and the smell of the fresh air would make her feel alive. She imagined the warmth of a firelight dancing on her skin, the crackling of the burning logs, and the scent of pine needles wafting from the trees. A light rumble of the train interrupted her thoughts. The crockery rattled on the tables, and the chandeliers shook slightly. Thea liked the sensation of the swaying motion of the train. It reminded her of the gentle rocking of a cradle. The elderly couple and her exchanged a slightly surprised look. The woman smiled softly and leaned forward. She initiated a pleasant conversation, chatting about the impeccable service of the Alaskan Railroad staff and the exquisite cuisine. Thea asked about the couple's destination and learned that they were traveling to Fairbanks to visit their granddaughter. The old gentleman then asked Thea about her own plans. Thea told them about her dream to explore the world. She had always admired adventurers who had crossed oceans and continents to find themselves. She spoke of her desire to see the great pyramids in Egypt, the Taj Mahal in India, the Great Wall of China, the Colosseum in Rome, and the Eiffel Tower in Paris. The older couple listened to Thea's story with interest and shared their own experiences. Talking about their currently ongoing ride, each shared their impression of the magnificent and imposing presence of Mount McKinley, the highest peak in North America, which the aurora had passed a few hours ago. Thea described it as a towering giant whose topmost point pierced the clouds. The lady explained that the mountain was more than 6,000 feet tall, and that the temperature drops drastically with every mile closer to its summit. The mount's native name was Denali, which comes from Koyukon, a traditional native Alaskan language, and means the tall one. The conversation continued and grew in depth. Thea found herself engaged in a lively discussion about the different destinations, cultures, customs, and history of the various countries the couple had visited. After a while, the older gentleman stood up, indicating that he would retire to his cabin. He thanked Thea for her company and wished her good night. Thea returned his gesture and bid him goodbye. Meanwhile, the tables had been cleared, and Thea deemed it a good time to return to her cabin. She opened the door to her cabin. Thea was greeted by the faint glow of moonlight shining through the window. The room was cozy and inviting, with 2 beds separated by a small desk and a chest of drawers. Thea undressed and slipped into her sleeping attire, a white silk nightgown. From the side of her bed, she enjoyed, through the large picture window, a stunning view over the winter wonderland, bathed in moonlight. The sight of the glittering stars above reminded her of her childhood, when she used to lie on her back and stare at the stars with her father, gazing at the constellations and learning the names. There was Orion, the hunter. There was Ursa Major, the big bear. There was Cassiopeia, the queen. And there was Andromeda, the princess. Her father would tell her tales of the heroes and heroines of Greek mythology, such as Hercules, Perseus, Theseus, Achilles, Jason, Medea, and Helen. She had grown up listening to these stories, her favorite being the myth of Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, who was abducted by Hades and became the queen of the underworld. Thea lay on her bed, gazing at the moonlit sky and listening to the soft music drifting from the lounge car. She felt comforted by the rhythmic movement of the train. She closed her eyes and relaxed, allowing her mind to wander back to the landmarks the train had passed, like the frozen Susitna River, which had glistened like diamonds beneath the bright sunlight. She recalled the sight of the majestic mountains rising above the plains and the breathtaking scenery of the alpine valleys. Suddenly, a greenish glow started to emanate from the window. Thea's eyes widened with admiration. Aurora Borealis was beginning to dance in the night sky over the mountains. Awestruck by the ethereal display, she gazed spellbound at the dancing lights. Placing her fingertips on the cool glass pane, a gasp of breath escaping her and condensing on its surface. She had never seen anything so beautiful in her life. She was stunned by the dazzling display of lights and the mysterious aura surrounding them. Something about these green woven threads of dancing air particles painted upon the black skyward canvas deeply touched Thea's soul. It was mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. She could not tear her gaze away from the spectacle, nor could she resist the urge to want to reach out and touch the magical display. On a small hill, Thea spotted a group of deer, observing the spectacle above them, as though entranced by the shimmering lights. She saw a herd of elk strolling peacefully through the landscape, their antlers reflecting the light of the aurora. Then she noticed a lone wolf howling at the sky, seemingly enraptured by the mystical dance. 20 minutes later, Thea averted her eyes, settling back into her bed, her eyelids heavy. She pulled the covers over her body and inhaled the familiar scent of lavender and chamomile, which emanated from her favorite pillow. She sighed contentedly and relaxed under the soft sheets, feeling the weight of her body sinking into the soft mattress, her heartbeat finding a lower, placid rhythm, with her breathing slowing down as well. A warm sense of gratefulness wrapped itself around Thea like a soothing blanket. How she had wished to see the mythical northern lights, and how lucky was she to have witnessed this rare occurrence so far away from her home. With the Aurora train gently rocking on the tracks and the murmur of the wheels rolling across the steel rails, Thea was finally lulled into a deep and comfortable sleep.